Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
You know those times when you get invited to a party as a guest?
But he took me to a John Legend private concert. I didn't even know that's what we were doing.
We're walking with Michael Jackson.
And you have no idea what you're in for.
I whipped out my junk and put it on his desk.
This is a podcast about just that.
They're going to arrest us for being on mushrooms at a wizard park. We're in trouble.
This is Plus One Stories.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Plus One Stories. My name is Chris Donovan, your host, and today I've got a really special story for you. A friend of mine by the name of JT Rogan used to be Jim Harbaugh's right-hand man and director of communications. So he's seen a lot of things working for Coach Harbaugh, including one time where Coach Harbaugh had to introduce then Vice President Joe Biden. So while Coach Harbaugh's on stage, JT's standing side stage with Vice President Biden. Now, this was back in 2018 when Joe Biden was on a book tour, and they just stood there and they talked college football while Jim Harbaugh's on stage introducing Adam Schefter to have a conversation with Vice President Joe Biden about his new book. So it's a whole bunch of stuff happening right there. And JT also has a podcast. It's called If You Don't Grind. He's had a whole bunch of really good interviews up there, so check that out. That's on the This Is Funner platform. So go there while you listen to this conversation between me and JT Rogan while he got to stand next to Joe Biden and talk college football. JT Rogan, thank you so much for joining me here on the show Plus One. How are you, man?
I'm good, and this is funner, so I'm juiced to be here, man. This is great.
That's right. Like I said in my intro, JT Rogan worked with Jim Harbaugh in Ann Arbor, Michigan, over at the University of Michigan, and that's how I met him because we launched his podcast together through Podcast One. Man, almost like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah, and it was great. We got a chance to work together every week, and I learned about the podcasting industry and about editing and producing a podcast, basically from you. I mean, you were my point of contact and teaching me, do this, don't do that. And, it was great working with you. And then, now you help me with my If You Don't Grind podcast, and happy to reciprocate and be on the Plus One podcast, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, you can listen to all those episodes of If You Don't Grind at thisisfunner.com. Everything's up there. You can find it. We're going to start this off by saying, first off, you were a plus one many times because you work in media, just like I do and my wife. You also work with some very prestigious people, like we said, Jim Harbaugh, plus, his father and anybody else that came through the University of Michigan because you worked as Jim Harbaugh's right-hand man. So this is a time when you were with Coach Harbaugh and you were his plus one. And let's start from there. Where were you going and why?
So Coach Harbaugh was asked to introduce Joe Biden, who was then the former vice president. When Trump was president, right? And so he was doing a book tour for his recently released New York Times #1 bestseller, Promise Me Dad. And so Coach Harbaugh was asked to do it, and he was going to introduce him and just kind of tee up the book a little bit, but, Coach Harbaugh's busy trying to win football games, and they're asking to do this in December, which is on the heels of an entire football season. And it ended up getting rescheduled to February, but, he and I had both read the book. And so, as his director of operations and communications, I took a stab at writing the introduction for him, but then also facilitating his arrival to the event, which I think was at Michigan Theater, but I don't recall specifically, but definitely went with him there. And
before we go any further, so you get an email. Now, who sends you this email that Joe Biden is asking Coach Harbaugh to come in and give him the introduction speech?
There's a lot of people facilitating this thing, right? So it's like, have your people talk to my people. So I guess I was Coach Harbaugh's people.
Yeah.
And so somebody from, I think it was probably Wasserman, a really high profile agency who's coordinating.
I was hoping it was like Steve at thewhitehouse.com or something. Somebody's
no.
Email address is something crazy you've never seen before. I went, whoa, or something.
But when I got there, he had plus ones. You think Harbaugh's got juice, Coach has got me, and maybe another person or another coach or something, but he had like, all these people on, it looked like they were all on like BlackBerries, just like cranking out work, coordinating the paces and the movements. And is the security here? Is the timing right? Does the light look right? Is Adam Schefter here? Like all of the things that were related to what was going on. He had an entourage of plus ones that were all getting the job done.
That's what I was going to say. That's a different podcast. That's called a plethora of plus ones.
That's right. We're going to have to, I don't know that we have the juice of the star power to get the plethora of plus one podcast rolling.
I'm not sure I do. I've ran into a few of them in the business, and it's interesting to see how many people roll with some people. It's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You are with Coach. You are heading to the theater. He's going to introduce Joe Biden, and you took a crack at writing his speech. How much of what you wrote did he keep?
Almost all of it. He liked it. At that point, I had worked for him for almost 2 years. And so, in addition to having played for him at University of San Diego and then coached with him at Stanford, I was pretty familiar with his tone, his phrasing, his verbiage. And so he looked at it, was aware of it, saw it, and like I said, kept most of it. He likes to inject, things that are topical or relevant or timely. So he definitely did that. Some of his phrasing, verbiage, enthusiasm, great, very complimentary that way. And so he did that. I just tried to give him something that was, foundational and pretty straightforward and true, factual, accurate, and, represented both him, the university, and former vice president, current president, at the time, unaffiliated Joe Biden in the best way possible.
Just a guy walking around some Secret Service agents. That's all.
Don't mind him.
Did you try to take any jokes at him?
No. No, absolutely not.
That's not a Coach Harbaugh thing.
No, and so I even had to like be subdued on social media myself. Like my role was to stay between, everything, right? Like just don't be confrontational, don't be difficult. I mean, and you heard our podcast, right? We're not like, sticking it to Ohio State every week or, there was none of that. It was always just, be diplomatic, be professional, represent everyone in the best way possible. And I learned a lot from that. There's value in that for sure. But then, certainly there are jokes available to be made. Maybe that wasn't the time or place, but, the Plus One podcast, that's a little bit more appropriate, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Harbaugh's on stage. When you get there, you have to obviously bring Coach in. How does that whole interaction with you and Coach meeting Biden and whoever his entourage is?
Yeah, so it was good. We parked back, behind the theater, and then there are like multiple checkpoints, making sure that nobody gets through. I mean, truthfully, it was more well staffed in terms of security than most things I've ever been to in my entire life, including like professional sporting events or whatever, right? And so you had like kind of like a screener, and then you had somebody manning the door, and then that person at the door had to radio to someone else. And so it felt like you were going to the most exclusive nightclub maybe that you've ever been to. But so we pass all the secret the secret checks or whatever. We get backstage eventually, and it's a couple of his people coming up and greeting he and I, Coach Harbaugh and I, and they're some of the Wasserman people. And so that was good and fine. And it was just really natural and loose backstage, but Adam Schefter was there, and I had gotten to meet Adam previously because he was an honorary captain in 2017, and I helped coordinate that. And so he and I were really friendly. And
why was he there?
He was actually coordinating and facilitating kind of the whole evening, the conversation about the book. So I think at each stop, they probably had,
moderator.
Somebody. Yeah, a moderator, and in Ann Arbor, Adam Schefter would be just about as good as you could do. Maybe James Earl Jones if you like the voice talent.
Yeah, Darth is always good.
Yeah, and he's an alum, right? So he would be captivating that way. But he's hard to get. We got him for the University of Michigan football intro video, and initially he said no, but then he came back and said yes, and that's a classic video that they play before the games.
Adam Schefter is well known in the industry. That's why I'm saying, like, so you're a plus one for Coach Harbaugh.
Yeah,
you get to meet Joe Biden, ex vice president and now president. Didn't know, but
yeah,
and Adam Schefter's there hanging out with you the whole time.
Yeah, pretty cool scene, right? And all three of
Yeah.
those guys are in suits, because they're going to be presenting in front of a packed house, sold out audience, and I'm just kind of wearing like my Michigan gear. It was cold, it was winter, so I'm wearing like a coat and a hat and like some khakis, always looking presentable, but never, not like suited up like these guys. And it was kind of interesting. I was just, I was standing off to the side minding my own business, and then like, now President Biden just walks up to me and like gets kind of just really close to me, something that somebody I've never met before has ever done to me. Like nobody ever like violates your personal space, but I don't know if that's like a key to cracking the code for politicians, or they feel like they can be really personal if they get like in ultra close proximity to you. But
Pre-COVID.
yes, pre-COVID. He gets up and he just starts talking to me about college football and shakes my hand, and we're in like really close proximity. So it was different and interesting, and just not how I typically meet people for the first time. But he was really friendly, and talking about college football is a surefire way to my heart, along with the heart of Coach Harbaugh and millions of others. So it was low key and friendly, and Joe Biden was talking to Adam Schefter's daughter via FaceTime.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Yeah, it was fun to be a fly on the wall for that. She was pretty enthused, and and it all went off without a hitch. It was all, pretty seamless.
What did you and Biden talk about? I mean, be a little more specific. You said college football, but
yeah, so he was, he, I think, played briefly at Delaware, and and so University of San Diego is a FCS Division I AA formerly level school. So, we know about Delaware, and Joe Flacco went there, and then my quarterback's still in the NFL, Josh Johnson, University of San Diego. And so, we were talking about smaller level college football, which is something that, you have to have an appreciation for. And if you find someone that has, similar enthusiasm for it, then you can certainly swap some stories that way. So, he wasn't spending too much time with me, but we got to talking about it, and he was kind of reliving the glory days a little bit. But
yeah.
I don't know that he was an outstanding football player. Certainly it doesn't exist anywhere in his bio, but he definitely, appreciates the sport, and, is an enthusiast of the Delaware Blue Hens, they have the same helmet as Michigan, very similar. And I think we talked about that a little bit too, just how that winged helmet, is synonymous kind of with both programs.
That is awesome. Now, can we text him? Could you get his number, right? You got his number?
Definitely not.
Oh, come on, man.
And if I did, I'm sure he's changed it. He's not trying to be fielding text messages for me, but again, when you're that high profile, you've got people, and like you never really connect with him. There's always a handler or a handler's handler. And so when I was dealing with Michael Jordan or Tom Brady or, a lot of these other people, they're just they're in a different stratosphere. And so it's never them and I talking. It's always like their people and myself. So
yeah, I feel you there. Okay, so you've met Biden. The coach did his introduction speech. Schefter's out there interviewing Biden. Is there anything crazy that happens during all this? Do you leave after coach is done? Do you wait and listen?
We stuck around just a little bit, but there was just, the fight song and a lot of enthusiasm, and, it's a pro Michigan crowd, and then it's a liberal community. So, generally supportive of President Biden. And so it was good. It was, there wasn't a ton to remark upon it, but, it had gotten rescheduled. And so, there had been some logistical challenges, but, went off without a hitch. And, there was just some general appreciation for Coach Harbaugh having done it. And, mission accomplished on my end, as far as I'm concerned. It's almost like no news is good news. So I was happy that, coach delivered the speech and made it authentically his, and then, and the stop was good. And I was able to get Adam Schefter on my podcast. Haven't asked about President Biden. I don't think he'll come on the If You Don't Grind podcast, but
I'm sure he would if you could reach out. If you could get a hold of him and not his people, he might go, oh yeah, the guy that played in San Diego. We talked about Delaware.
Yeah, of course, right. I'm not holding my breath, but if we cross paths again, and I'm a +1, or maybe I am the person with the +1, then maybe I'll be able to invite him. So.
Well, let's hope that I'm at that same event with you.
Yeah, we can +1 it up.
Yeah, right.
And there haven't been too many other instances where, I have not been able to contact people, because with Coach Harbaugh, there's like, hey, I'm the guy in front of the guy, and he's got a pretty, bright star and a celebrity, maybe slightly less now that he's out of the NFL and hasn't been to the national championship or whatever, but still a high profile coach. But, for the podcast that you and I put on together, I was able to coordinate everybody coming on except one person, Judge Judy.
I knew it. I was going to say it.
Yeah, sorry. Well, yeah. So Judge Judy was, you got to go through her people. And not only that, she was the only one who was just like, yeah, I got to go. And so after like 10 minutes, she had to go. And she was also probably the dollar per minute, most well-paid person that we talked to, because I had no idea until I researched it, just how much money she makes through her show and then licensing and producing and distributing and all that. It's like $50 million a year just from the show, not for any of the other, I don't know what they can get for re-air rights or, if there's Judge Judy merchandise or memorabilia or whatever. But
I'm sure Coach knows because he's a huge fan of Judge Judy.
I know. And if we asked him, he'd probably have the answer with the quickness for sure.
Coffee cup. But that's funny because I remember editing that show and you only had a few times, like you said, she did say she had to go. But how long before you got Coach to be like, hey, stop being a fan, we got to start the podcast, was it?
Well, I didn't even really like try and talk him out of that because he so oftentimes is going to do what he's going to do anyway. And so, I let him kind of just geek out and fanboy. And I was the host of the podcast, but, not your host in the traditional, like introducing and then really truly defining the direction of the show. Like I would create a script and sometimes it would just veer wildly off course and I couldn't do anything about it. And so that coming week, I think we were hosting some dignitaries that were all about access to justice and it just happened to time up that way. And so she was a pretty big fan that we were supporting the legal system. And, there are tons of people who, aren't able to afford lawyers and can't get adequate representation. And, they can get caught in the justice cycle. And so she was a fan of that. And so we had some good talking points above and beyond just his attendance as a guest on her show. And, all of her sayings about, calling people to the mat and calling them out when they're, giving the BS.
It's so fun to watch her when she goes. And I did watch the episode with Coach and his dad. It was awesome seeing him in the front row. Before I get to back to a couple things you said, the podcast was a great thing. I remember when we launched it, you had John Madden on the show.
Yeah. So there were tons of people, right? There's John Madden and I forget some of them. So if I leave them out, don't crucify me, but Big Cat from Barstool Sports. And he's another one I've had on my podcast. Huge fan of his. Ric Flair.
That's right.
Ric Flair was awesome. The Nature Boy. Lots of media people from Michigan. So Adam Schefter, Rich Eisen, Desmond Howard, who checks the media box and the football box. Mm-hmm. We had Tom Crean on, who's his brother-in-law, who's now at University of Georgia as a basketball coach there. His brother John. I think you helped facilitate getting Troy Aikman on.
Yeah, I think we went through one of the richest people or someone because Rich was in our studio every week.
Yeah, and then we had Adam Carolla. So there were, and I'm omitting some people. So again, don't shoot me. And some of his former players too, right? I think we had Trent Murphy. Mo Hurst was probably on. David DeCastro. There's some former players of his. But it was a ton of fun, and the guest list was pretty distinguished. I think we had Dick Vitale.
Yeah, we did. We had him. Yeah, I was there the whole time with you, so I should remember these names too.
Yeah, no, I know, but you do so many podcasts, right? This one's specific to me, but some really fun characters and personalities. And again, I know I'm omitting some names, but fun talking to them and getting to know a little bit more about them, and Coach kind of geeking out and having some fanboy moments with some of them too.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to a couple names you dropped: Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. Now you said you had to facilitate them at Michigan before. Obviously, Tom had a situation. I don't want to go into Michael yet because I want to think we're going to record a second one about that one if it's do a different one.
Yeah.
But Tom Brady. I remember there was a podcast where Coach was talking about how his daughter or son got his phone and started texting Tom Brady saying, "Good luck at the Super Bowl." Can you tell me that story a little bit better?
Yeah. His daughter, Addie, would use his phone and Coach Harbaugh is just, he's not like a private personal, he's kind of an open book at this point in his life. And so, you give your kid your phone to just, look around and play around. And if I remember correctly, she sent a random picture, a text that said like, hey or hi. And then, I'm pretty sure this was the case, a poop emoji.
Okay, so Tom Brady's looking down at his phone. It says Coach Harbaugh, and
Yeah.
that's what comes across.
Okay. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I think he responded with something kind of acknowledging that, it wasn't Coach Harbaugh sending those messages, like, like a thumbs up or,
I remember
yeah,
that story. And like, I think it was like right when he was it was like the week off before the Super Bowl or something. 'Cause he was in the Super Bowl so many times, but I think he was heading to the Super Bowl and do something like good luck or something after that. And he's like, it was so funny when I heard that story. I'm like, man, my kids did that. Whoo, I don't know. I might lose my job or something.
Yeah. How do you come back from that? Right. But yeah, it all ended okay.
Well, JT, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. We're going to definitely be talking more because, you have a crazy past with Coach Harbaugh and the University of Michigan and Stanford. So thank you for being here. Can you tell everybody how to reach you on social media? Yeah,
I'm on Twitter at JTE Rogan. So I know a lot of people normally just put their initials and their last name, but I've got two middle names, JTE, James Tyler Elliott. On Instagram at Jet Rogan. So I just transposed the E and the T. And then, you helped me put together ifyoudon'tgrind.com, the If You Don't Grind podcast. So you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at If You Don't Grind, and put out, I don't know, a few dozen episodes. And and you helped me with that. It's awesome. It's fun. I do one a month now just because it's fairly time consuming and I've got some irons in the fire, but lots of appreciation for you and all that you've done, and that This Is Funner family. And thanks for having me on today.
No, thank you, JT. I really appreciate it. Like he said, thisisfunner.com. You can find all of his podcasts up there and all the ones that I do. So take care, JT. We'll talk soon, man.
Right on. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Bye.
You've survived another story. Thanks for listening, and please let us know what you think about the show by leaving a rating and review. If you have a story or want to connect with Chris, go to thisisfunner.com.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.